Rodri, Ter Stegen, Carvajal. What do these three have in common? Let's give you a few more to add with the same association. Now, if you generally follow football, every name here should be familiar to you. You still haven't guessed it? Well, every player here is injured right now. And these are gone for the whole season. So why I chose these in front of you is because everyone plays in one or the other top 20 UEFA club and is definitely a crucial player for their club to say the least. Do not get me wrong here with this quote-unquote small number of players. I could have picked a lot more, as there are currently 116 Premier League injury reports, which means this status is sadly not slowing down. The sports medicine departments of the clubs are getting more and more advanced, and the players are showing the complete opposite. So how is this actually possible? What is going on in football? Well, today we are going to unfold the answers that await this dilemma and get rid of this mystery. So grab your favorite snacks, drink something good, and enjoy the video. We all have seen it. Players constantly complaining. Well, I would rather say indirectly starting to protest, verbally, about the number of games they are playing nowadays.
The schedule is getting busier and busier, and I think if you compare it, for example, from previous years, it's proven that it's getting busier and busier. So I'm not the one that complains, because we are very blessed, we are very privileged.
Did you notice how he said it is proven that it is getting busier over time? Well, is it really? To answer the mentioned take, let's imagine a player in his early mid-20s, becomes the top scorer of his league and the Champions League, even wins the treble, and goes off a Ballon d'Or by around 5% of the votes. Who could this be? Well, these are actually two of the same stories of two completely different dominant eras in football, with the most recent treble winners is Erling Haaland and the total football era of Ajax and Johan Cruyff in 1972. Why am I mentioning this now? Well, Erling Haaland played in all of these competitions, and Johan Cruyff played in these. Who do you think played more games? Well, obviously Erling Haaland. What a stupid question. By just 700 minutes. Haaland played just around 8 games more, and that is because the Norwegian had qualifiers for his country that season and the Dutchman didn't. With the utmost respect to the Ajax legend, Erling looks like a machine compared to Johan Cruyff, who also smoked cigarettes, which led him to 0 injuries, along with the fact that Erling got injured for 6 games. We are talking about 50 years difference. We are talking about arguably the best player on the planet right now and 50 years ago. Right now, when the players have the best recovery and nutrition methods we have ever seen. Right now, when most of the football facilities look like headquarters from world-leading companies. And this is actually, honestly, the first example I looked up. At the end of the day, the players are the main characters in football, so the most money is well spent on them and their improvement in every section possible. So it seemed that the large number of games was the problem, but this quick presentation is not actually backing it up. We need to dig a little bit deeper here. One of the things should be substitutions. They are pretty plain and simple, but it isn't as simple as explaining to someone that players are getting injured at a record high level since they added more substitutions. One way to look at it is that earlier you had 3 reserves, which means it wasn't guaranteed for you to play if you're a rotational player, leading to even more hard work in the training to see the floodlights of the game. It shows us that in the past you had to do much more as a rotational player to get minutes, which led to more injuries probably. And with that being said, it makes sense to have more important players injured in today's game. Just consider this. You have to play the first half obviously at your maximum, and then in the second half you get 10 new fresh players that come in, and the only thing you can do there is to keep it at 100 even though you're realistically physically at 60. Therefore, let's see if this is actually true. I took the 3 players with the longest injury period for the top 20 UEFA clubs last season and 5 years prior in the 2018-19 season, and truth be told, half a decade ago there was an exactly equal number of the crucial and rotational players being the most injured, but in the last season the number of crucial players raised to 34, making a difference of 8 players. Now, you would think 8 players isn't much, but these are the ones who in one way or the other changed the courses of some important games, being out for the majority of the season, which isn't a good thing at all. But this definitely isn't the whole picture here. Now, coming to the conclusion that more crucial players are unavailable, does this mirror the intensity of matches nowadays? Well, for this, it is kinda random, but I took one of the greatest derbies in football's history. Derby della Madonnina. Maybe a few months ago, we probably all saw those trendy TikToks which sponsored the old Milan derby, with Hall of Fame names like Mourinho, Maldini, Ibrahimovic, Ancelotti, Ronaldinho, and so on and so forth, all in the same game. It surely must be more intense for them to play that game than nowadays when you have the names that aren't realistically close to those back in the day, right? Well, I watched both of the derbies, a victory of 1-0 from Milan in 2008 and a 2-1 Milan comeback in 2022. I'm not a Milan fan though, but those are the only full matches I was able to find with similar outcomes. That being said, I captured the following stats: something that's technically enduring, something that's running-wise enduring, and something, well, that's surely the biggest cause of injury. And I think the old heads are going to like the outcomes, with the new Milan derby having more one-touch passes, a lot less changes of possession, and more fouls. So today's football, at least in the Milan derby, has gotten more technical. You could say the less changes of possessions could be less enduring, but when you watch both games, everything is explained. In the 2008 match, and stereotypically in that era, there are countless times where the keepers kick the ball from their line in the middle of the pitch just hoping for the best outcome. But nowadays, one or the other team are often connecting clean passes, which makes the other run around more, making more switches of pace and turns, which clears this match being more intense running-wise. In the terms of fouls, 2022 had even more unfair plays, even though we think the game has gone a lot softer than 15 years ago. And we are talking about the Milan derby, where the older one had teams that looked like your best 11 drawings from school days. As a matter of fact, there were also more hard fouls in the earlier derby, and the stats support that statement. The old one had it also, but the new had just simply more. Obviously, it seems like a small increase, but this is just because the old Milan derby was ahead of its time completely. To quickly prove this point, I searched another random derby in the world where it had same results this time on different occasions, and the first that came up was Chelsea versus Tottenham. I know, but hear me out. So I watched both games completely. Again, one from the 2006-07 season and one from this season. Both games finished 3-3, which meant that the level was definitely up with both games. So let's take a look at the same stats once again. Yep. Oh wait. Rewind it just a little bit. The game that happened this season was 3-4 for Chelsea, right? But there was another game between them actually that I took the stats from where it ended 3-3 and it was played in the under-18 Premier League. And the thing I said that the old heads would be happy, come on, I had to tease y'all a little bit with one of the answers to this enormous problem. Going back to the comparison of Haaland and Cruyff, the same goes to the derbies. Those are indeed the first examples that I found for the two topics, but nothing is hidden here anymore. It is obvious that football is starting to increase those new formats, new competitions, and new ideas to get more and more games out there. And this season could be probably mentioned as a landmark for changes of formats. Continental and international competitions were always around with some few changes here and there, but in the last few years it really increased with the matches. In 2018 the Nations League was launched, and moving on to the present, in this season we are witnessing the new Champions League format. The old one had 125 games, there is 173 since this season. The old Club World Cup format 7 games, the new one 64 games. The classic World Cup format had 64 games, the new one 104 games in the straight summer heat. And the Nations League has a wider concept of the tournament with playoff games now. There is literally an inescapable amount of games if you want to be a world-class player. Now that it is clear as day that everything possible is pushing the players to injuries, one question remains. More games or more quality? At the end of the day, we do watch millionaires kick a football around for 90 minutes, and if they earn that much, they can play every second day in my opinion, but if they continue with this rhythm, we will never see them again at their full potential. It used to be more exciting, for example, already in the classic Champions League group stage when elite clubs end up in the so-called groups of death like Group F last season or Group D in 2012 with some obvious honorable mentions. Now you've got such top-level games between creme de la creme clubs. One example that is still in my mind is when I caught myself completely ignoring the PSG vs Atletico match where the team out of Madrid won away in Paris because there was Inter Arsenal, or Bayern Benfica, or Stuttgart Atalanta on the same match day. Who remembers that Atleti beat PSG away? Exactly, even though this game was a few months ago, a lot of us already forgot it, but we surely didn't forget that incredible Newcastle win against PSG last season. The excitement factor has definitely decreased because there are too many games, which leads to even more injuries, which leads the way of never seeing a team again at their full power, like the Milan derby I've already mentioned. The ironic thing here is that the quality of the players will get so much better through this insane schedule, but we will never see them at their full power because of the exact same reason: there is no time to rest. The truth remains that we will probably never watch football with its full power again. The players are extraordinarily improving, and these players were designed for this game, but the game isn't designed anymore for them. To end this off, let's hear it from the Ballon d'Or winner about this topic. This was his last press conference before his season-ending injury.
After playing so many games, or being asked to play so many games, that the players will say, I don't want to be part of this, and they'll actually end up like going on strike or not refusing to play in such a big kind of calendar.
Yeah, I think we're close to that. When the amount of games start getting bigger, the performing and the quality of the games are lower. So let's see what football goes. In my opinion, I would prefer to have less and better quality, better show for the people.